We're going to approach human resources in the aspect of a regular business. And there's a couple of functions, and you always think of human resources as the place that you get hired. There's a huge amount of work besides that, but pretty much there's 50 to 70% of the work, depending upon the time of year and the type of business, where you're actually involved with the recruitment. It just depends what is the turnover and what you're looking for and if you're expanding in the process. So recruitment and selection, we always tend to think they're the same thing, but they're actually quite a bit different in how you go about doing them. In human resource management, this is really the critical part of the aspect of making your place new, innovative, and a place that would be a good place to work, even a fun place to work, although it is called work, okay? But the reality is trying to find the right fit for the person. You know, human resources is one of those types of departments where you have two different extremes. You see people on the very best day of their entire life. We hired a fabulous one. I can't believe how she's going to fit right in. It's also the one where you know what, there's some problems. She forgot to disclose this, and she really isn't doing a very good job on this. So you see them on their very best day. You see them on their very worst day. Sometimes you see them on the day of my mother. She's sick, and we're worried that just could be her last days on earth. I need to have time off. You have those kinds of highly emotional days. You have days of joy. You have days of pain. You have days of actually termination. You have disciplinary action. You have everything. Human resources is, in my opinion, a pretty fascinating work because of the fact that if you're in the world of business, which actually is my background, 2 plus 2 will always be 4. In human resources, on Monday, you have a person that sits at a desk and they look one way. The next day, there's another person at the desk. They look exactly the same, but it's a different personality altogether. And then on Friday, it's a different personality, and it's all the same person. People change from moment to moment, day to day. They bring their outside stresses in, and they leave them at work sometimes, or they take work home with them, vice versa. You have all that. It's probably the most interesting aspect because you're dealing with human capital. Now, human capital sounds pretty cold, but the reality is you're trying to find the best fit, the best asset for your organization in each and every single area that you have. The process, you do recruitment, selection, then you figure the compensation, then you do onboarding, then you do performance management, and then the aspect of employee relations. We're going to be talking about all those, but right now, recruitment and selection, they're very different in the process and what you're trying to do. So regardless of the organizations, you will see all of these items that you see on the left-hand side of the screen in your life if you're involved in human resources. The biggest thing is, are they going to fit inside the organization, and are they going to fit on the outside? Do they have the KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities to get the job done? That's a big thing. But the other part too that we're seeing a lot more is that a lot of businesses are concerned about this critter thing. It's called soft skills. Some people I can do this job technically and everything else, and they don't have any personality. There's no emotional intelligence. There's no sensitivity to the needs of the customer because they don't listen very well. That is a critical aspect of it that we try to address through our college courses. But the real problem is that college courses are a moment in time in academia that hopefully they learn the basic elements to do that. But it is life experiences an awful lot that makes a difference as to how you treat customers, making certain you're sensitive to their needs, that emotional talent you need to have, that external fit, as well as the internal fit inside. It's a big deal. Human capital, that social capital that's out there, getting the right people, competencies, and connections into the right places at the right time. Once upon a time, I had the biggest recruitment of my entire career, one that I've never seen before, ever. We posted a job for a 19-and-a-half-hour assistant child resource center. So in essence, this person went, and they were in the child care center, and they would help with children, not even full-time, not even qualifying for anything, a 19-and-a-half-hour job. So they're there for 19-and-a-half hours. We had 966 applications for the job. Now, How in the world, that's called the actual recruitment. So we had this giant pool, which is what recruitment is all about. You had to take that 966 and reduce it down to something that you wanted to interview. On a job, usually a high profile job, you might interview 10 people. Normally on a job that is one of the lowest paying jobs at a college, you really want to narrow it down to about 6, maybe 7 people, and you have a committee working on it. How in the world do you weed out those 6 people from the 966? We had people applying with doctorates, master's degrees. People were desperate for work because we were in the middle of a recession. So we had all this going on, and people were panicking because if they hire somebody overqualified, they're going to be gone in 3 months. Next thing something else comes up, and they'll always be looking outward. You want somebody that's stable because you're dealing with children in the aspect of you want to have some stability and not have a rotating door. So the first thing you do is you find reasons to throw people out of the pool. And they didn't sign it, they didn't fulfill this, they did that. So in essence, pay attention to a lesson like that. You might be in a pool. Don't give a prospective employer a reason to throw your application out because they have to weed down a large number of applicants down to a small group where they can actually go through and make the actual selection. Recruitment, you sit down and you try to make certain you have a pool of applicants that are highly qualified and diverse as possible. You want to have a lot of different abilities and different competencies that they have to make certain that they all fit in the right places. Do they have cognition? Do they have good emotional intelligence? How is their soft skills in the job? What are their attitudes? Do you have any superstars? Are they somebody that you would want to have working next to you on a daily basis? And by the way, if you're applying for a job, you want to make certain that they think that you are the very first one that can fit that aspect of it. If you're applying for a job, there's multiple different things. When you apply for the job, your job is not to get the job. If you're applying for a job, your job is to get interviewed for the job. So step number 1, when you apply, have a crisp cover letter. Make sure you fill out everything. Make sure you fulfill their expectations about filling out the application, having a good resume, and having a cover letter. Have all that down pat, and your goal is to get the interview. Once you go to the interview, then after the interview, which is the selection process, you want to land the job. So there's multiple steps involved if you're applying. If you're on the inside of human resources and you're looking out, you want to sit down and make certain you have a good pool. 966 is an awful gigantic pool, but you want to narrow that down and down to the 6 to 10 candidates that you might want to actually interview to make certain you do your final selection and you have a good opportunity to look at a whole series of different people and their skill sets and give them the chance to sit down there and show their best foot forward. The other part, when you're looking at the aspect of selection, you want to choose the best person for the job. You need to eliminate internal biases among all the different people that would be in the selection process. It could be one person. You might see that in the private sector. In the public sector, you'll tend to see a group anywhere from 3 up to, I got hired by one committee with 23 people on it. So you have anything from 1 to 23 people, sometimes 40 people behind a committee, depending upon the job and its broad general impact. But the reality is you have to choose the best person for the job and that they're a good fit and that they can do everything possible that you're expecting out of them and excel in the process. Selection is a big thing. Sometimes in internal recruiting, you want to have some promotional opportunities. Sometimes you post it for internal applicants only. Sometimes you post it for internal and external people outside the organization and let them compete against each other. And sometimes you only want external recruiting. It depends what you're looking for. If it's a new job, you want to have the opportunity for people internally to apply for it probably, but you want to have the external people that may have more experience, especially if it's a new job and nobody inside has that experience. Sometimes you have referrals. Sometimes you have people that left that here's an opportunity to come back. You have all kinds of different ways, and you'll have to choose what recruitment approach that you want best. And then how that figures into recruitment, sometimes it's a matter, in our case, we're hiring college professors. So there are times that we actually had a special advertisement and brochures in nursing magazines because of the fact we're hiring a nursing faculty member, and who better to teach than somebody that has that raw experience in the field. So sometimes you'll have a diverse methodology to have a big recruitment pool to sit down and have the people that you want to have applying for the job. Your selection process. Do you have legally defensible selection tools? Here's my opinion. Don't ever use a personality test. Frankly, there's a law against it. There's probably one of the most famous cases out there really focuses on using a personality test to help define a person for the job. Otherwise, you don't want to exclude people that could be out there. Have good background information. Make certain they know who you're going to check, including previous employers. Sometimes background checks include previous employers as well as the ones that they recommend. Have interviews that can be unstructured, let them talk, behavioral description. Typically, every single selection process on the interview, you're going to have some type of situational question about a crisis that could be in that job. Have different kinds of tests, integrity and others. Like I said, do not have anything on personality tests that is flat out. Duke versus Briggs Power is actually the case, so be careful on using that, but focus in on things that will measure their ability and their performance. Then, once you choose, you want to figure out where they fit on the salary schedule, what kind of incentives and benefits. When somebody comes to me, I have a lot of people ask me questions about how do you apply for a job. If you're going to be having one job to the next one, always try to get at least 10% more than you're currently making. You may not get it, you may get 7%, but it never hurts to ask. They can only say no. What type of incentives do you have? I applied for a job one time, and there were some things they didn't like about the job because they wanted somebody who enjoyed firing people, and that simply isn't my way. But that being said, they came back to me again, and they had cleaned house the way they wanted to do it already, and they were sitting over there, and they forgot to tell me about the spectacular benefit package that, oh, well, to me, that's really cool. So I ended up getting the job. So sometimes you want to look at the benefits, tell them all the benefits, and you as a supervisor may not be the one that knows them. You may have somebody else doing that. Recruitment, gather a pool of applicants. Selection, choose and hire. And then third, develop the people that you have, because it's much cheaper to sit down and develop them and grow them in the industry than having a vacant position because you didn't pay attention. Always make certain that the people you have, you develop them because they're valuable to you, because they already know the organization, and it's going to cost you about 6 months' salary to replace that person. So keep everybody on the right road, but also make certain they're well compensated and that you're creating a positive work environment for everybody. Take care.